A few things I want to talk about in this video. First of all, I'd like to clarify comments I made yesterday about Congressman Ron Paul during the Iowa Republican debate. Congressman Paul does not make up facts as he goes along. What I should have said was that he uses information to distort facts, and he spreads propaganda. Now, he doesn't make up facts; he simply just distorts facts into his own agenda and promotes which turns into propaganda. And what I was referring to specifically was Congressman Paul's position on Iran. Now, former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum, somebody I don't always agree with, but I do believe that he is right when it comes to foreign affairs. Senator Santorum is right that Iran is a lead sponsor of terrorism, that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is dangerous and a madman, and that Iran acquiring a nuclear weapon is a very dangerous prospect for the world. And don't kid yourself that Iran is in this alone. Venezuela is in this as well. There has been talk about Russia and Iran having dealings. This is a very dangerous prospect. And Congressman Paul's notion that, well, they can't fly over here because they can't make the gas. Guess what? Iran, there's a way. I mean, they have an ally in Venezuela that is that is very close to the United States of America from a world perspective. So that's totally distorting what he said. And the whole thing about Rick Santorum was, trying to use war propaganda. That also was not true at all. Rick Santorum and others who believe in an aggressive policy against Iran don't want a war. They're not promoting a war at this point in time. And to say they are is totally distorting. Congressman Paul's position is based on, frankly, ignorance and a lack of judgment on his part. So I just want to clarify, I should not have said that he makes up facts. However, I do feel that he distorts facts and misleads America. And I think that he does what he does fundamentally playing politics with our national security. I think that's very dangerous, and I think his position is more in line with the classical liberal anti-war movement that has been around since the Vietnam era and still continues today than it is with many in the conservative wing of the Republican Party. So I don't see where he really, at least on foreign policy, where he is running in the right party. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is something that Ron Paul supporters, as well as others, probably actually agree with me on. And that is that a couple months ago I made a video in which I stated that I felt the TSA was doing its job. I was wrong. I thought that because I looked at it from an airport security standpoint. I believe that we need to have metal detectors at our airports. I believe that we need to be ensured that we have public safety on airlines and airports and such. What I don't believe is appropriate is harassing people. I think it's counterproductive. I think it creates a hostile environment. And frankly, that's not what America is all about. America is a country of laws. We have an obligation to protect ourselves and our people, but we must also follow a set laws. And I don't believe that touching people in a perverted manner is appropriate for our government to permit. And the story that really changed my mind was a Florida woman who was dying of cancer, who couldn't get on a plane without being harassed. That was really the tipping point for me when I said, I think that my position was the wrong position. And I'm willing to admit that I was wrong. And I give those of you who argued with me and those who took a different position, I give you tremendous credit. I have changed my position. I now believe the TSA is acting inappropriately. Finally, I want to talk about Governor Rick Perry's candidacy for the Republican nomination. Governor Rick Perry supports open borders. The reality is that one of the biggest threat to our sovereignty today might actually come from a very small minority who believe in a North American Union. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know what that is. For those of you who don't, it's basically we joined with Mexico and Canada in having one large nation, like a European nation with one currency and no borders, one major economy. Now, I support free trade, the free flow of products. I support NAFTA. I support free trade agreements that as long as they benefit the United States and its trade allies equally. I don't support disproportionate trade agreements, but I do support free trade as a general rule, but I don't support open borders. And what the NAU, the North American Union, would do is it would create open borders. Now, President George W. Bush signed free trade into law as President of the United States, but he did send more Border Patrol agents to the border. He never expressed an interest in having a North American Union. A lot of people speculated that he did, but his actions show that he did not. Now, Governor Rick Perry, on the other hand, supported having a highway that would go, an NAFTA superhighway, which would go right from Mexico into Texas. It would be an open border, which all sorts of problems would come from that. There would be no border patrol. This is somebody who supports open borders and an NAU. This is a very dangerous guy. And people go around saying, well, Governor Perry's record on jobs is impressive. The truth is that Rick Perry has done little over the past decade, or a little more over a decade now, as governor of the state of Texas. George W. Bush signed the largest tax cuts in Texas history. Rick Perry's done virtually nothing over the past his time as governor. The only actions he's taken is he tried and luckily failed to pass a NAFTA superhighway, which would open up our border. He successfully implemented in-state tuition breaks for illegal aliens for their children. And he grew the budget in Texas. I think spending in Texas grew by every 2-year budget cycle something like 16%. This year, the year he decides to run for president, he finally cut spending, which he gets credit for, partially, but he also took stimulus money, so he doesn't get full credit. But Rick Perry he's not consistently fiscally conservative, and I think people can figure out by now I'm not totally a stickler for consistency, but I will say that overall he's still a fiscal moderate at best. And but this whole NAU thing really scares the daylights out of me. It really compromises our sovereignty. I mean, this is a guy, it's really interesting to me how any Republican, or anybody for that matter in this country, would vote for a guy who wants to give you two options: secede from the Union or dissolve the Union. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense.